To continue to add more to our military playlist on Finland, we look at the Finnish Navy. And although they may be smaller than other navies around the world, they do make up a major part of the defense of the Scandinavian countries. And with that in mind, we're going to dive as far as we can into this particular unit and learn as much as we can about its history, its current status, and what it's all about. Hey everybody, how's it going? Dave Wapple here, and welcome to FTD Facts, the channel. Well, I mean, all you guys who are returning, you already know I talk about people, cultures, and places from all around the world. That's really just for the new people who are coming here for the first time and like, what is this channel all about? With that being said, if you like learning about countries, cultures, and militaries, you want to hit that subscribe button because that's what we do. So for me, I'm pretty excited about this because, first of all, we've done a lot of videos talking about the military branches of Finland. We've talked about the Jäger Regiment. We've talked about the Army. As a matter of fact, we've put it all into playlists. I'll talk about that later. But just so you know, we've been talking about the military and we just haven't done, well, I haven't done the Navy yet. And I'm like, yo, what is this Navy all about? So with that in mind, guys, let's get started and let's look at the history because that's kind of the important part. Let's understand where the Navy came from and how it grew to become what it is today. So to start it all off, when it comes to its history, the more modern day version of Finland, well, its navy began and was formed in 1918. This was obviously after Finland had basically said, yo, see you later, Russia. We're going to go and do our own thing because, yeah, we don't like to be owned by you. We're no longer going to be a duchy. We're going to be our own independent nation. Yeah. But truth be told, we cannot talk just about Finland's naval forces from this date because there's so much history from way before. So going way back in time, one thing that was a very important thing about Finland is that it was a home to many naval bases and supplied a lot of sailors for the Swedish Navy. Now, these groups were part of a very famous group known as the Archipelago Fleet, in which this fleet existed anywhere between 1756 to roughly about 1823. And one of the first major battles that caused this fleet to grow was after the Russians destroyed the Swedish fleet at the Battle of Gangut. This happened in 1714, and it was in the midst of the Great Northern War, and that battle took place in Hanko, which is the southern region of Finland. Now, of course, as the years progressed, the fleet had seen combat in also the 7 Years' War. As well, there's a lot of historical evidence and mentions of a Finnish squadron which existed in 1756, in which the entire archipelago group around this time was under the command of General Augustin Ehrensvärd. And also they say during that time that that fleet only consisted of 2 major squadrons, and that was the Finnish squadron and, of course, the Swedish squadron. Should also mention that during this time, the archipelago group took part in what is known as the Russo-Swedish War, which ranged from 1788 to 1790, in which after that, in 1793, a second Finnish squadron was added in Abo. Also, I want to mention that during this time, there were 2 major battles that happened in Finland. And these battles were the first and second battle of Svenskund, which first happened in August of 1789, and the second one happening in 1790. And in today's world, to give you an idea of where this took place, it happened around what is now known as Kotka, Finland. Now, during the time of the Archipelago Fleet, this particular unit actually had 2 different headquarters. And although one of them was located in Stockholm, Sveaborg was also considered a major defense point of Finland, in which the Sveaborg Fortress is now located in Helsinki, which is in Finland. But however, let's fast forward and let's get into the 1800s, because this is where things got a little interesting. Because by 1808, the Finnish Navy had seen combat in what is known as the Finnish Civil War. And unfortunately, in the early days of the war, the Finnish squadrons, along with the Sveaborg Fortress, was lost to the Russian forces. And by the end of the war, Sweden had lost its grip on Finland, thus resulting in it being lost to Russia. After this, Finland became known as the Duchy of Finland, which was pretty much under kind of Russian control and influence. However, it was during the time of 1830 that the military of the Grand Duchy of Finland became known as Suomen Merikkipaasi. And of course, this particular armed forces had formed a navy consisting of around 1,000 men and several ships. I also want to mention 2 of these ships in particular, and that is the Rurik and the Kalevala. Both were actually one of the first steam and propeller-based ships within the country. As well, the Rurik was designed by Johan Eberhard von Schantz, who was a Finnish-born man who served as a military officer for the Russian Navy. And now, because Finland was majorly influenced by Russia, the Navy of Finland saw combat in the Crimea War, which took place from 1853 to 1856. And of course, influence from Russia affected the Navy until the country got its own independence in 1917. Now, by 1918, which was pretty much the first year of the Finland's own independent navy, a lot of the ships were pretty much passed down from the old Russian Empire. And during the early years of the 1900s, Finland had only a few gunboats and approximately 14 torpedo boats and several mine warfare vessels. Now, okay guys, we're going to get into more of the modern aspect of the Finland Navy, but before I do, I just want to let you guys know I did talk earlier about playlists. Now, if you guys are really liking learning about the military of Finland, because most of you are probably from, Finland and want to learn about your own country, you guys can just hit this little box right up here. Also, I'm going to put it at the end of the video, so if you want to stay here, that's totally cool. It's also going to be in the description box below. But on top of that, I've also done videos just talking about Finland itself and how great the country is and some cool aspects around it. So that card's going to be here. And of course, that's going to be at the end of the video as well. But let's get back and continue even more so. Now, this next upcoming fact, okay, I just got to say, I found it really, really cool because the truth be told, the truth of the whole thing didn't actually come till years later. And that was in 1930, Finland and the Finnish Navy had a bit of an alliance with Estonia, and Finland broke its neutrality rule and fought against the Russians. Now, this was known as the Finnish Estonian Defense Cooperation, which didn't become public knowledge until the Russian secret files became public information sometime in the 90s. Basically, despite Finland's policy to be a neutral country, the two countries, Finland and Estonia, worked together to prevent the Russians from taking control of the Baltic states and sea. And as a matter of fact, Finland and Estonian navies teamed up together, having submarines and mines placed in the regional sea, and of course, coastal batteries with 105mm cannons, which cover the areas between Makaluto, Finland, and Nesera, Estonia. Shortly after this, of course, World War II broke out. Finland had approximately 5 submarines, 2 coastal defense ships, 8 minesweepers, 1 mine layer, 4 gunboats, and many torpedo boats. However, for Finland, one of the big things was during the Winter War, which unfortunately Finland didn't provide much defense against Russia. And this wasn't really due to the fact of Finland's fault. This was due to the fact that in December of 1939, things got so cold that the ships couldn't even move because there was so much ice. And throughout most of the Winter War, they were pretty much stationary. Of course, after this, ships of the Finnish Navy were heavily involved in the Continuation War and the Lapland War. As well, I should mention one of the worst maritime war disasters for Finland was the destruction of the Ilmarinen, which was a coastal defense ship that went down on September 13th, 1941, after being struck by a mine. And as a result, 271 sailors lost their lives in the sea that day. And also on a side note, the Ilmarinen ship was found in 1990 at a depth of 70 meters. As well, it was found extremely close, anywhere between 15 to 30 kilometers away from the wreck of the Estonia, which is considered one of the worst maritime disasters in the 20th century. It's pretty nuts. I also should mention that during the entire war, it's been reported that the Finland Navy had laid approximately 6,382 mines. And of course, I'm not going to get into it, but clearing those mines after the war was a bit of a problem, and there were even some accidents. However, after the end of the war, because of all the peace talks, Finland was restricted to a navy of only 4,500 men and a total tonnage equaling about 10,000. Which also meant that this country couldn't have any mines, it couldn't have any missiles, and it couldn't have any submarines. And to this day, Finland doesn't have any submarines, believe it or not. But however, in today's world, many of these rules have changed due to the fall of the Soviet Union. And in the present day, although it is a very small fleet, we should take a look at what's interesting about it. First of all, when the 90s came around, Finland created what is known as Squadron 2000. The original plan for this squad was to have 2 missile boats and a few hovercrafts. However, due to some tactical differences, the hovercrafts were put aside, and instead they built the 4 Hamina-class missile boats. Side note, when it comes to the hovercraft, they also did build the Thule-class hovercraft. Unfortunately, because they didn't really want it and nobody wanted to buy it, they scrapped the whole thing in 2013. Now, it's been said that some of the parts are actually on the Hamina class ships, but I think that's just warheads, missiles, and all that sort of stuff. As well, when it comes to the Finland Navy, they are now focusing on replacing old mine prevention ships, and in 2012, they invested 34 million euros for the new Jihu attack transport boats. Overall, the Navy of Finland has 4 Hamina-class missile boats, 5 mine layer vessels. They also have 3 mine countermeasure vessels. There's also 9 minesweepers and, of course, 12 Jehu attack transport boats. Just a little bit of a side note, when it comes to these 12 attack transports, I'm not sure if they currently have all 12 of them. I know in 2014 they first started operation of this particular craft. As well, there's also a major plan to eventually add more ships to the fleet and replace older minesweepers and missile boats that are already retired. Now, this is known as Squadron 2020. The Navy plans to build 4 of these new Corvette-type ships, in which they set to build them anywhere between 2019 to 2024, costing approximately 1.2 billion euros, and being capable of participating in international cooperation operations. And lastly, let's just look at the Navy itself. It is actually broken up into 4 different regiments and 1 headquarters. And for these 4 units, you have the Coastal Fleet, the Coastal Brigade, which acts as naval special operations. You also have the Nyland Brigade, which is the only training regiment that speaks in a Swedish tongue. And last but not least, the Naval Academy. But either way, guys, there you go. That is a look at the Navy from its history and to today's standards. So let me know your thoughts on this. Would this be a force that you guys would like to join? Other than that, my name is Dave Wapple. Thank you for tuning in and learning a lot. And like I said, before you guys get out of here, down in the description box below and at the end of the video, there's going to be, boom, that military playlist on Finland. Only Finland stuff that you guys can check out. We try to organize it for you guys because we know a lot of people from Finland are watching our Finland themed videos. Also, if you want to just learn about the country, I've also just got, you know, a playlist about Finland itself. It's really awesome to learn about that place and country because, man, it's got some cool things going for it. But that's enough for me. I'm going to get out of here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh yeah, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Talk too fast. Anyways, bye. All right, so guys, here you go. Here's those playlists I was telling you about. You got your military Finland playlist, and you got your country playlist right here. Choose whatever one you want. Other than that, we'll see you in the next one. Okay? Bye.